March 19, 6:22 p.m.
I cannot believe that my parents are making us stay at an old mansion for 4 whole days. It's called White Lake Manor, and thank goodness it was expensive, so the stay wasn't a week. The mansion gives me the creeps. It and the lake are both a black, inky color with green, twisted vines covering everything. The walls and everything on them look as if they could fall down at any minute and swallow you up in the debris. The floors creak whenever you walk or drop anything onto them. Then there is the door. The door is painted white, but in some areas the paint is chipping, revealing the rotting oak base underneath. The brass handle on the door is freezing cold also. When I touched it, a chill went up my spine, and in my mind I got a vivid flash of an image of a little girl. I freaked out. Plus, it's raining hard, and I don't think it will stop soon. I hate this house, and I want this vacation to be over.
March 20th, 1:57 a.m.
It's official. This house is haunted. I woke up around midnight to my curtains flapping by the open window. I never opened it. I guess the wind from the storm had blown so hard that it caused the window to open. But then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw it, or at least something. Tiny blue and white orbs of light were gathering by the window. These weren't fireflies. They seemed to know exactly where to go, what to form, what to do. And I swear that I heard something. Annabeth. It sounded like a name, but I could not make out what it exactly sounded like. It sounded like Anna something or other. Later, I think I dozed a little, because in my mind, I saw this little girl. Her hair was blonde, but had a tint of gold to it. It was long and flowed past her shoulders. Her lips and skin were almost the same color, pale white. She was wearing a lavender dress with pink rose blossoms, the exact color of the room I was sleeping in. But her eyes were like silver waves in the middle of a thunderstorm. She looked scared. She looked sad. The last thing I heard was a screaming voice behind the girl's head. I woke up sweating and screaming.
March 20th, 12:29 p.m.
Here's day 2 of our trip to White Lake Manor. The blue and white orbs that I saw by my window last night still haunt me. Somehow I think they are connected to my nightmare about the little girl. Outside my window in my room, you can see the beautiful lake. In the morning, it's a deep sapphire blue, not at all like the way it looks at night. At night, the ripples in the water look like inky black waves. The trees that border the lake remind me of the lonely stone faces of statues that sometimes cap graves in creepy cemeteries. Their branches cast gloomy shadows onto my curtains and my window. Sometimes the branches look like fingers, and sometimes finger-like branches tap against the window as if they want to come. I really hate this place. I want to leave, especially after last night.
March 20th, 2:53 p.m.
Today, I decided to read a book, but then I got stuffy in my room, so I opened my window for some fresh air. As I turned to return to my book, something by the lake caught my eye. I saw a little girl playing by the water. She was a pretty girl. I wanted to play with her, but I decided to read a little bit more. In a few minutes, I decided to see if she was still there, but she was nowhere to be seen. I think she might have gone back to her family in the house down the road. Later, I heard a muffled scream. But I assumed it was my brother.
March 20th, 10:04 p.m.
I can't sleep. I gaze over at the window that I left open since it was still stuffy in my room from earlier. I started to fall asleep when my curtains shook. It must have been a gust of wind. Later, I dozed off again, but then I suddenly jerked awake. My first instinct was to look out the window. As I did so, I saw the same little girl by the lake. It kind of scared me because it was the middle of the night, and who plays outside that late? She was still playing in the water, and her feet were still bare. I then heard the same eerie scream. I knew that scream wasn't from my brother, since he was sleeping. It was coming from someone else. I took the blanket from my bed and covered my face. I was starting to feel scared. I didn't know what to do. Sweat started to form on my forehead. It seemed like forever before I finally pulled the blanket off my head. My curtains flapped. Then silence.
March 22nd, 8:06 p.m.
After last night, I have absolutely no doubt. I was awakened once again at midnight by the ghostly flapping of the pale white curtains. My curtain was thrust above my head, propelled by a haunting and invisible force. I covered myself entirely with my coat, except for my eyes. I was afraid, but I was more afraid of lacking sight and knowledge of the occurrences. Once again, the mysterious and hair-raising orbs of light appear out of nowhere and fluttered from all across the room towards the window, as though they had a mind, a destination. As I watched them, I became breathless. Then a sudden, icy chill trickled down my spine and pulled into my tippy toes. Then came the whisper. I couldn't hear it at first, but then the sound grew and grew until it made its way to ring eerily into my eardrums. Annabeth, Annabeth. The whisper that had haunted the darkest realms of my mind ever since I had arrived at this forsaken place. The whisper of despair, of pain, of loss. I need to know, I thought, the voice in my head screaming. I need to know who Annabeth is. What is wrong with this house, and who is whispering? I need to know. And suddenly, before I could comprehend anything, sleep overcame me, quicker than the speed of light. The dream was vivid, but the eyes through which I saw were not my own. I could tell it was a little girl when I suddenly let out a laugh. That sounded like a beautiful wind chime blown by a light breeze. My body was playing with a bright pink bouncy ball. I felt exhilarated. The ball suddenly rolled away from my reach. I let out another peal of laughter. As I sprinted a great distance to catch my toy, but something went wrong, terribly wrong. Suddenly, I was not surrounded by a cool and sunny summer atmosphere, but by black, suffocating, swampy water. I fought, I kicked, I struggled, I couldn't breathe. I saw a light. The vision changed. I did not know whose eyes I was seeing through, but I saw a middle-aged woman weeping. As her tears streamed down her face, she whispered a name inaudible at first, but which gradually got clearer. Annabeth, Annabeth! I gasped as realization slapped me hard in the face. Before I knew it, my eyes flew open. I was me again. But terror took over the relief as I looked above to find two ghostly blue orbs of light eerily floating above me, closing in.